Hello everyone, this is V, and as you can see I have been playing a lot of Diablo lately, and I would like to show you what I am enjoying at the moment. I have a Frozen Orb build. I know this is kind of cookie cutter, but I enjoy it a lot because of a few things. And I think I have a little bit of a different approach than most people. And my version has been less affected by the nerfs, I think. So I would like to show you what I am doing here. First off, we have the skills. Frozen Orb obviously does a lot of damage if you can aim it correctly. I think the nerf to the area was a little bit unnecessary, but uh, well, it is what it is. We have to do what we can with it for now. Frozen Orb, I think, has been my favorite skill since Diablo 2, and I really love it because of the way it plays. And if people think that it's just because it's overpowered, then I would dispute that, because there are much more powerful wizard builds out there. And as you can see, I farm on only Torment 2. I can do 3 and 4, but it just slows me down so much because of the way the skill works. Because of the rest of the build. I use Glacial Spike. I am at the moment using a Mirrored Ball. We will go over the equipment later. But if you are not lucky enough, this still works fine, because I don't really use this a lot. You'll see it when we go through a few bounties that I actually rarely use this for damage. I just use it to stop something, and that means that the mirror ball isn't really essential there. Force weapon for buffing my damage, familiar for buffing my damage, energy armor for buffing my crit, and black hole to gather mobs and gain some spell damage. The absolute zero is of course for us the best version. Not only does it do cold damage, but the buff lasts 10 seconds, which is great. And then we come to the passives. Elemental Exposure speaks for itself. It's, I think, the best damage buff. I'm not entirely sure it works in multiplayer, but I don't play a lot of multiplayer, so I wouldn't really know. And Astral Presence to regain arcane power as fast as possible. And then Blur and Galvanizing Board, because they combine well together, and well, I don't really need extra damage to farm Torment 2, and the build would change if I go to Torment 3, because it just wouldn't work well anymore. On Torment 3 I would probably just go for Glass Cannon, and well, it depends. Maybe Unwavering Will, though I doubt it. We move around too much to benefit from that. Cold-Blooded would still work pretty well, I think. So that would likely be my build, and that would provide me with enough damage to reasonably easily farm Torment 3, but the speed still goes down a lot because it kind of interferes with our main plan. And the main plan depends on this helm, Pride's Fall. And as you can see, it reduces resource costs by 30% if you have not taken damage. And that means that as long as our shield from Galvanizing Ward is active, that also the helm's effect is active, and our Frozen Orbs are going to cost about 15 arcane power. So as you can see, the arcane power goes down pretty slow even without hitting mobs, and I do have some arcane power on crit. All this other gear is interchangeable. I go for a lot of critical hits and critical hit damage. I limit the amount of haste. I only have attack speed on the gloves and on the Tel Russia chest because, well, they are pretty much unavoidable. Everything else goes into straight up int if I can, and well, that's about it. The rest of the build I just go for resists and armor because I really don't need vitality at all. The shield holds quite well. It provides a huge buffer, and the longer the shield holds, the longer I benefit from my cost reduction. So let's see how this plays out. And well, the reason I play on Torment 2 is because the shield stays up and I can keep farming pretty quickly. Of course I do have the gear, but it also works very well on Torment 1, and the difference is really just very small. No, that didn't really go as I had planned. Quite important here is it's okay if your buff falls off. You are not dependent on the price fall buff to make this spec work, but it is a very nice bonus and you will always benefit from it in the earliest casts. I also have a little bit of resource cost reduction on weapon and shoulders, 7 and 10% respectively, and I have put paragon points into resource cost reduction, so that all stacks up multiplicatively, which means that you want values as high as possible per piece. But I really love this spec because of the mobility and the way it plays. I just really enjoy it. You don't have to care about too much. You can see that you can keep moving, keep spamming Frozen Orbs. You don't have to stand still too long, and that's what I like about it. I always enjoy playing reasonably and defensively. And it means that you have so much arcane power available that you rarely need to resort to other spells. And this is very important because ideally you will get a 3-piece Talrasha set bonus for 2 more arcane power regeneration, and that means you would no longer have the well, you would still have the option of using the mirror ball, but it becomes rather unlikely because getting 3 good pieces of Talrasha is not something that's very easy, especially if you have to pass it into other existing tier slots. And this build also works very well on lower Torment level rifts, and with friends I can easily do T3, T4 rifts, constantly spamming Frozen Orbs, and it's just not really much of a problem at all. As long as they keep mobs off your back and you can keep the shield up, then you can keep your cost reduction active, and that's when you are in prolonged fights. That's the most important. But even if it falls off, it usually falls off far enough into the battle that you no longer need the resource cost reduction. Because as long as you have the resource cost reduction, your arcane power should stay at pretty much maximum. And the fact that you can move also combines well with maintaining the shield. I'm just running around here looking for the stupid Khazra. Then, as you can see, I only use the glacial spike to stop the charge there, not to inflict damage. Although it still does a reasonable amount of damage because of Mirrored Ball, it's really not dependent on it. And I use this spec because the area of effect just suits me more. It means you don't really have to set up the mobs in other builds like Ray of Frost and Disintegrate. You sort of have to withdraw to set up a mob line so that you can penetrate them with one beam. It's not the same for an Archon build. Archon builds are probably more powerful, but they depend on more gear as well, in my opinion. And I've been playing this since before I had any gear at all. And if you are wondering, the Pride's Fall is a reasonably, well, actually very easy legendary to get. I have gotten 3 or 4 so far, and they drop from the Act 3 bounty caches. And Act 3 bounties are one of the easiest, most fun and fastest to do, so that's not something that's gonna cost you a lot of effort to get. A few days of farming should get you one, and the stats on them are usually pretty good. So I'm actually wearing this one, but I have some others with armor on them but less crit. And you can reforge one stat for orb damage, and then the version should be fine. So a farmable legendary is always better. I don't think you can get it from gambling, so there is no point trying that, I think. Though I could be mistaken about that. And I just enjoy the way this plays. It's relaxed. I'm not the greatest farmer. I prefer to play alone. And in the groups I do play in, well, we usually have someone is rather tanky, like Monk or something. And as you can see, it all goes pretty fast. Now this was not the fastest bounty, and as you can see, the shield falls off, but it's not really that big a deal. You can manage just fine without it for a while. And then,
need more arcane power.
by the time you need to move to the next encounter, the shield has recovered itself, and your arcane mana pool has refilled, so you can start over. And that makes it very convenient to play. Very resilient character, you don't need to worry about dying. I assume that this would also work pretty well on hardcore, although I don't play hardcore because I disconnect all the time. And well, I really hate losing my gear. So yeah, it's one of the builds that I really enjoy. Stacking cost reduction until you reach about 50%. Pretty good. And then you can spam Frozen Orbs as much as you want, pretty much. Which is really the only problem most people have with the build. They usually use a builder and a passive skill slot, but I can use the same slots for defensive abilities, which kind of changes everything, because it means that I can get twice as much power out of the character, or something like that. And my killing speed is still pretty good. On top of that, if you get the right weapons, you should be able to do exactly this on Torment 3, and I don't think that's a bad thing, because Torment 3, pretty much the last one you can conveniently and quickly farm through. Everything above that becomes the domain of other classes, I think. You can do it with a wizard if you have really great gear and another build, but it will never be this fast. If you want to farm higher torments, like, well, on extreme speeds, you would need to go to another class, I think. At least with the current patch, I think you would want a witch doctor or a well-geared barbarian, maybe a demon hunter. Which brings me to the point that I don't really understand why Frozen Orb was nerfed. Was never good at higher torment levels to begin with. It was a lot of fun though, but basically reducing the area doesn't really change all that much. It just makes it a little less fun to play. See, if the area had been unnerved, then those would all have died. So it just slows you down a bit without really changing anything. And that to me doesn't really make a lot of sense if other classes can just summon a bunch of pets and run around without having to worry about anything. And well, that's just a shame. The fact that the resource regeneration was nerfed, that I can kind of understand. Let's just finish this bounty run. So, Act 3 bounties to get the helm, that's pretty much all you need, and then focus on crit and crit damage. Haste doesn't actually help you a lot. It will increase your paper DPS, but paper DPS and real DPS, those are completely different things, especially if you don't have a mirror ball, then haste with well, attack speed is just not gonna be very good, because you burn through your arcane power pretty quickly, even with the helm effect on. If you spam on a boss, and that's really the only time you need haste, because everything else should die in 2 orb casts, even elites die in 2 or 3. Though I'm not really playing all that well at the moment. Kind of difficult to concentrate on the game and talk at the same time. I am not yet used to that. It's different than in Civilization, of course. The action here goes quite a bit faster. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that still does no good for the mana pool here. And with haste, that just goes a little faster. But it's not very relevant. You want to inflict as much damage per cast as you can possibly do, So getting int crit and crit damage much more important. Also very important, very high damage weapon. Speed does not need to be too high, although, well, the best weapons are still the same. Thunder Fury, Nazareth. Shard of Hate is getting nerfed, so probably gonna be a bit less popular, and it was never really that great for Wizard anyway. But anything with a damage proc on it is gonna be very good, especially for elemental exposure, of course. Although most weapons with damage proc on it have the same damage proc as the added damage on the weapon, so it shouldn't really matter all that much. And yeah, you can see that the boss still goes down pretty quickly. You rarely run out of arcane power this way. Rarely need to refill. And the shield just stays up because I have like 83% damage reduction on everything. Let's see, Queen Aranea, please, before she attacks. And there she is again. See, I freeze her, that means she stands still, and then it's just a matter of finding the right distance to maximize your orb damage. And that's pretty much it. We have done all of Act 1 bounties in a reasonable time. You can do it faster, but sometimes you just have to find bounties. And well, that's my build. You can find my profile under Vobo on Battle.net. I'm sure the gear is good, but in all honesty, you can do almost the same with full yellows. The effectiveness of the build works just as well with 800k damage, even though you might need to step back one torment level. As long as your farm speed is high, then that's all that matters, and the mobility provides exactly that. See you next time.